In April of 1934, almost the entire United States Navy fleet transited the Panama Canal. During the previous 2 years, the fleet had been stationed in the Pacific Ocean. But that spring, over 100 of them set sail for New York City. There they would pass in review for President Roosevelt, then stay in port for the next 18 days. It was a chance to build public support for an expanding Navy, as well as an economic boost for a city in the depths of the Great Depression. On the way to New York, the fleet engaged in a number of exercises, known as Fleet Problem 15. There was a simulated attack on the Panama Canal, as well as a battle at sea in the Caribbean. Then, on May 25th, the ship sailed from Haiti for New York. The majority of the Navy's surface tonnage participated in the review. 10 of the 13 active battleships were there. All 3 aircraft carriers then in commission, the USS Langley, the USS Lexington, and the USS Saratoga. 19 of 24 cruisers were in the review, a little less than half of the destroyers. And altogether there were over 80 ships, 185 airplanes, and 40,000 men in the review. Reviewing the fleet from the cruiser USS Indianapolis were President Franklin Roosevelt, Secretary of the Navy Claude Swanson, and former Secretary Josephus Daniels. Daniels had been Secretary and Roosevelt Undersecretary in December 1918 when a fleet review was last held in New York Harbor. Also reviewing was the cruiser USS Louisville. The 2 cruisers were joined by the battleship USS Pennsylvania, the flagship of the Navy, with Admiral D.F. Sellers on board. In addition to the ships, the 3 carriers deployed almost all their airplanes, which flew over the review and lower Manhattan. The battleships anchored in the middle of the Hudson. The Lexington and the Saratoga docked at Pier 90, which had been dredged just weeks before to accommodate them. The Langley and dozens of other ships were at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and elsewhere on the East River. More ships were tied up at 129th Street, 157th Street, Dyckman Street, Yonkers, and Hoboken. Altogether, there were close to 100 Navy ships in the port of New York. On Friday, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia and his party paid an official call aboard the flagship USS Pennsylvania.
Mayor LaGuardia, it's a great honor as well as a pleasure greet you on board the flagship of the United States fleet. The officers and men of the fleet are looking forward with a great deal of pleasure to their stay in New York.
Captain Sellers, it's indeed my pleasant duty as mayor of the city of New York to extend to you, the officers and men, the United States fleet, the welcome of the people of the city of New York. We hope your stay will be pleasant. Admiral, the town is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Set, ha!
Mayor LaGuardia, never a fancy dresser, had remarked the previous day to Grover Whalen, "I'll never be Jimmy Walker. This was a new hat when I started out today." On Saturday, Navy sailors marched in a mass parade up Fifth Avenue, with many ships' bands participating. battleships were anchored at the bows and swung with the tide. At that time, many of them carried seaplanes that could be launched by catapult and recovered with a derrick. At night, the battleships lit up the sky with their searchlights. The Pier 90 area, where the aircraft carriers were tied up, was a mass of people in construction. Work was underway on the new 1,100-foot piers being built to accommodate the Queen Mary, the Normandy, and the other superliners then under construction. In addition, the elevated Miller Highway will be going through here in a few years. The landings at 72nd and 96th Streets were busy as crews ferried visitors out to see the battleships. The crowds were so large that Riverside Drive and West End Avenue were reduced to one-way traffic. After a week or so, Movietone decided it needed to liven things up a bit. So they hired a motorboat and a couple of aquaplaners, Helen Daly and Betty Bailey, to run up and down the Hudson past the battleships. They also arranged for a couple of sailors to stand by and shout something not too racy as they went past.
Put that goddamn thing away.
Where's the visitor at?
Hot dog.
The fleet weighed anchor and departed early on Monday the 18th. The total number of visitors in the 3 weeks they were in port was estimated to be 1,400,000. Sunday, June 10th, was the biggest single day. 150,000 visitors, with 30,000 more turned away. Only a peacetime navy could risk having the bulk of its warships all together like this. And in 1934 the world was, for the moment, at peace. But the Axis powers were already rearming. The United States Navy was rebuilding as well. More ships, including a fourth aircraft carrier, the USS Ranger, were added in 1934. From a post-war low of 102 surface warships in 1921, the Navy would grow to 140 in 1934, and would have 225 active surface warships by mid-1941. Many of the ships and the men who participated in the review would see action in World War II. Some were lost. The destroyer Reuben James, then docked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, would, in October 1941, become the first American warship sunk in World War II. The battleships California and West Virginia were sunk at Pearl Harbor that December, though they were later refloated. The carrier Lexington was lost in the Battle of the Coral Sea in 1942. Others would survive. The carrier Saratoga and a number of the other participating ships would be destroyed as part of Operation Crossroads, the 1946 atomic bomb test at Bikini Atoll. Movietone News got some sailors from the Saratoga, the Rockettes, and a piano onto the roof of Radio City Music Hall for a special performance. It was a hot day. You can see the open windows of the surrounding office buildings, as well as the men in shirt sleeves looking out of them.
Okay, kids, run along. Emily, you gonna do the trumpet?